Good morning. Welcome, whether you're here in the room or joining us on YouTube. It's so good to have you here. We are the Unitarian Universalist Church of Canandaigua, a group of spiritual free thinkers who gather to celebrate life, build community, and better the world. Wherever you are on your spiritual journey, you are welcome here. I'm Nancy Reed, your worship associate for this morning, and I'm excited to welcome our guest, Reverend Libby Moore, who will be leading worship today. And this service is being live streamed to our YouTube channel. If this is your first visit, welcome. We invite you to sign the visitor's book in the entryway. And whether it's your first visit or your 1000th, we're glad that you came and we are finally able to be back inside, some of us. Also glad we're able to continue this streaming thing, so we shared Libby's wisdom with more people. I have a few announcements. Reminder, please wear a mask when you're in here. Masks are available for anyone who forgot one. We are not able to sing in unison yet, but humming, dancing, swaying, and other expressions are strongly encouraged. Child care will be available downstairs by a vaccinated volunteer who today is Laura Wink. Thank you. We will plan to be together in person and on Zoom with Reverend Eileen leading the service next week, December 19th. We will have a pre-recorded service of lessons and carols prepared by Reverend Eileen and Bill Mells available on our YouTube channel for Christmas Eve, if you'd like to do that. And meet together on Zoom during our usual worship time on December 26th to view a service prepared by UUA President Reverend Susan Frederick Gray. One more announcement. We still aren't all in the same space at once, but we can bring light and cheer to one another. Everyone is invited to participate in this year's UUCC Secret Elf Exchange. You will receive the name of a person or household from our congregation to secretly bless with a gift or a meal, or even just a simple homemade card during this holiday season. An elf or a family of elves will be assigned to you as well if you sign up. If you'd like to participate this year, please sign up using the link in our newsletter by tomorrow evening, by Monday evening. That'd be great. Are there any other announcements for the good of the congregation? Okay. As we prepare to be fully together, I remind you to silence your phones and devices, and we now enter a space of worship. And I invite you now to join with me and say the words of our chalice lighting. We gather this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning in celebration of the life we share together.
Good morning to all of you here and those of you in your pajamas at home. This is the season of endings and beginnings, when the small signs of dawn pierce through the night and something new is born. But first comes the waiting. First come the lessons of endings and beginnings, the presence of life, the sheltering spirit of love grieves with those sweeping up the debris of loss, waits with those who restlessly reach out for change, grants us courage in the night to guard each other's dreams for this holy, wondrous universe. Grant us, O universe unfolding in mystery, a sense of your timing. May we loosen our grip on that which doesn't serve us, leaving behind that which we have outworn and outgrown. Teach us the lessons of beginnings. Remind us that such waitings and endings may be a starting place, a planting of seeds which bring to birth what is ready to be born, something right and just and different, a new song, a deeper relationship, a fuller love in the fullness of time. The first hymn is called When Darkness Nears. It's number 50 in the hymnal, and you can hum along with Bill.
We are a community that holds one another in our celebrations and in our pain. We welcome you to share your joys and sorrows. You can write them down on the card you found on your chair and place it in the basket when it comes by you. Or you can type it in the chat box if you're watching from home on YouTube. Know that whatever your heart is holding today, whether shared or not, we are with you. And shifting gears now, if you're planning to go downstairs for childcare, you can join Laura now.
Did we get everyone's joys and sorrows papers?
And now I invite you into the spiritual practice of generosity. Donations from you all is the primary way that we fund the good work of this congregation. 1/4 of our plate collection this season goes to Happiness House, an educational, residential, health, and human service organization that excels in providing services to children and adults with and without disabilities through collaboration with families and partners throughout the Finger Lakes community. And you can give to this morning's offering by placing cash or a check in the basket, or if you're joining us from home, visit canandaiguauu.org/connection/donate, or mailing a check to UUCC at 3024 Cooley Road, Canandaigua 14424. In any case, make a note that your gift is intended for today's offering. We now gratefully accept the offering.
Thank you all for all you give to this community. We have some joys. Ken's 70th birthday. Is Ken here or online? Okay. Happy birthday, Ken. Isabel Ann Steele says her joy is to be here after my second COVID vaccination. And actually, she said she didn't want that read, so forget that I read it. I'm not looking at all the little boxes. And Benson Steele says, yes, my cousins are leaving to Texas. Hard when people move away. Bob Gordon says we have a garage that actually houses our cars, which I know can be a miracle for some people. And I have a joy, which is also sort of a sorrow, which is that my brother Ralph Undercuffler and his wife Linda Proctor send their love and miss you all. They've moved to Vermont. They're quite happy there, but this church was really important to them. I also would like to take just a minute in silence to remember all the people who have been affected by the tornadoes in the South and Midwest, and the people who are working so desperately to find survivors, and the people who have lost everything, and the people who have lost power, all the workers, all the families. Just hold them in our hearts for a moment. May they know, as may we all know, that we are held in love. So as we enter now into a time of meditation and shared silence, I invite you to let go of your thoughts. Allow your body to settle comfortably into your seat or wherever you are. Close your eyes if that's comfortable for you, or keep them softly focused in front of you. The meditation is a poet by Jan Richardson, who is a poet and minister. It's from her blog called The Advent Door. And we'll use the ancient practice of Lectio Divina this morning, which is contemplative reading. We'll sit with this poem for a bit. The first time I read it, simply let the words flow over you. Don't think about it or analyze it, just listen to the words and the rhythm of it. The second time through, listen for one word or phrase that stands out for you. And then after that second reading, we'll share a couple of moments of silence so that you can reflect on what that word or phrase is saying to you. So this is the first reading. A blessing for traveling in the dark. Go slow if you can, slower, more slowly still. Friendly dark or fearsome, this is no place to break your neck by rushing, by running, by crashing into what you cannot see. Then again, it is true, different darks have different tasks. And if you have arrived here unawares, if you have come in peril or in pain, this may be no place you should dawdle. I do not know what these shadows ask of you, what they might hold that means you good or ill. It is not for me to reckon whether you should linger or you should leave. But this is what I can ask for you, that in the darkness there be a blessing, that in the shadows there be a welcome, that in the night you be encompassed by the love that knows your name. So I'm going to read this a second time. Listen for the one word or phrase that calls to you. Go slow if you can, slower, more slowly still. Friendly, dark, or fearsome, this is no place to break your neck by rushing, by running, by crashing into what you cannot see. Then again, it is true. Different darks have different tasks. And if you have arrived here unawares, if you have come in peril or in pain, this might be no place you should dawdle. I do not know what these shadows ask of you, what they might hold that means you good or ill. It is not for me to reckon whether you should linger or you should leave. But this is what I can ask for you, that in the darkness there be a blessing, that in the shadows there be a welcome, that in the night you be encompassed by the love that knows your name. Good morning again. I begin with a reading, which is by Teresa I. Soto. It's from a meditation manual. I don't know how many of you know the meditation manuals that the UUA puts out. They are wonderful resources. Anyway, this one is called The Spark Between. There must be fuel, there must be a spark, and there must be oxygen. We have principles and ethics, the fire, the fuel of the fire we would light. The spark is what passes between us, along with our aliveness, our possibility. Spirit moving in us is our clear invitation, embossed, addressed, sealed with wax, tied with ribbon. The spark is a seed of fire that must be treasured and tended, that it may bring the light. We have passion, the air without which nothing thrives, least of all the blaze of covenant, justice, and kindness we would illuminate, both with who we are and what we do. All of these, an invitation to bring to life the blaze of liberation that is meant to light our way and to dispel the fog of cruelty and grief. It brings us instead to a hearth around which we gather to be nourished, energized, and warmed, and where we get ready to disperse, enlivened. I am so glad to be here again with you all. I want to acknowledge, first of all, that we are on the ancient lands of the Seneca Nation, keepers of the Western Door, part of the Haudenosaunee people. May we honor and respect their memory and teachings. May their presence today and every day remind us of our broken promises, our desire to heal, our kinship with all being. I also want to acknowledge that this December morning is as beautiful as any I have seen in a long time, and that Bill and I both saw the geese flying over, and they were lit by the sun in a way that made them look like lights flying in the sky. It was just magical. So I'm grateful to be able to be here. We're just around the corner from the winter solstice, the darkest time of the year. It's the shortest day, the longest night, the onset of deep winter. In some traditions, the solstice is marked with bonfires, the fire of releasing the old and creating the new. Observations of the solstice are kindled by the hope that the sun will return, that light will fill this dark world. We have faith, even as darkness surrounds us, that the world keeps turning and that the rhythm of sun and dark will once again warm the earth and bring new life into being. And a couple of weeks ago, people celebrated Hanukkah, which is the Jewish celebration of lasting light, the miracle of oil which burned for 8 days when there was enough for only one day. The miracle is celebrated by lighting the menorah every night for 8 days, bringing back the light at this dark time of year. And today is the third Sunday of Advent. It's a time of waiting and anticipation in the Christian tradition. On each of the 4 Sundays before Christmas, another candle in the Advent wreath is lit until all 4 are blazing. The candles represent hope, peace, love, and joy, all the blessings that we hope for in this season and throughout the year. During Advent, some people wait in stillness for the coming of light and truth into the world, for the birth of Jesus. I have an image in my head because I have been rewatching Call the Midwife, the image of the nuns standing in the chapel singing a cappella in that beautiful, clear voice. Stillness. But a lot of people just wait for the excitement of Christmas morning and opening presents and seeing what they get. This is such a complicated commercial time of year. It can be really hard for some of us. It often distracts us from the stillness and the meaning of Advent. So however we mark this time, the world is indisputably in darkness, although the sunshine outside belies that, but in general, it's more dark than light these days. Each in our own way we respond, maybe by treasuring the stillness and listening for what we can learn from the darkness. Maybe we respond with fear and anxiety for what is happening in the world or in our own lives. Maybe we respond by wanting to isolate ourselves from all the hustle and bustle, or we want to brush it away by gathering with friends and family and making joyful noise. It may be all of these and more. I would guess that most of us experience some kind of emotional or spiritual darkness now and again. We're not alone in that. And in this part of the world, we live with physical darkness, with long nights and little sun. It's important to remember that darkness has much to teach us about living in the fullness of all that is. In the dark, we may discover the creative fire that lights our lives, leaps in our hearts, lets us know that we are connected with the love that holds us all. Years ago, I experienced physical darkness in a way that has lasted for 40 years with me. Back in the 70s, I lived in New Mexico, and I was a single mom. I had one wonderful child and very little money. But somehow I came into a little extra cash once, and we decided that we wanted to go on a weekend trip, an adventure. So we drove south from Santa Fe to Carlsbad Caverns National Park, which is almost on the Mexican border. The main cave at that park has been improved. It has lights and pathways and music, and it's very exciting. But my son and I both preferred the mystery and wonder we found in what was known then as the New Cave, which had no improvements. We visited that cave in the company of a park ranger. You couldn't go alone. And there was this group of bold souls, each with a flashlight and hiking boots and a sense of adventure. The ranger led us single file down through a narrow passageway, through these walled areas into the cave. And then he stopped in one room and waited for everyone to assemble. He shone his flashlight around the stalactites and stalagmites, and then he turned it off and asked us all to remain quiet and turn off our flashlights. I have never been in darkness like that. Even in the countryside at night, there's starlight or moonlight or the glow from a distant city. But deep in this cave, there was complete and total darkness. Even after the interval when our eyes would ordinarily accustom to the dark, there was no light, nothing to see. All of us felt awe at the intensity. We couldn't see our own hands or the people around us. We stood in silence. The only sounds, the breath of our companions and the faint dripping of water in the distance. It seemed to last an eternity. How do you tell time without light? It was magical and intense and deep. Still, we heaved a collective sigh of relief as the ranger turned on his flashlight and sight returned to us. Imagine being the person who discovered this new cave, the courage it took to go into the dark without knowing what was there. The poet Wendell Berry writes, "To go in the dark with a light is to know the light. To know the dark, go dark. Go without sight and find that dark too blooms and sings and is traveled by dark feet and dark wings." We went into the dark of that cave without sight, without light, and came out in wonder. It's rare that any of us experience such profound physical darkness. But those of us who have lived with depression know that there are times when life can feel like that, like being lost in a dark tunnel with no visible way out. And some of us have experienced what is called the dark night of the soul, where we lose sight of our deepest truth, that we are not alone, that we belong to one another and to the holy, that our lives matter. Darkness is often depicted as emotional and psychological pain, but it can also be a source of joy and creation. As with most things, as with everything I know, darkness is neither all good nor all bad, all joy or all pain. It can be all of that and more. And our work as people of faith is to embrace the wholeness of it. Inside our bodies, there is no light, yet it is in that dark interior that we feel joy and happiness and pain and fear and anger and grief and love. In the dark, we may feel a connection with the deep and the holy within ourselves and beyond. The one way to look at it is to ask about the dark is, are we bringing something to birth in the dark or losing our way? The activist and author Valerie Carr asks, is this the darkness of the tomb or of the womb? What unexpected blessing is coming in the dark? Finding our way takes more than switching on a flashlight. So what about the spark that creates fire? I've been reading Braiding Sweetgrass by Wall Kimmerer. It's one of those books that sat beside my chair for months and months and months, and I never read it until a group I'm part of, Laura Wink is actually, and also, we decided to read it together, and I am so grateful. I was hooked by the beauty of her language and by her descriptions of the natural world. Kimmerer is both a trained botanist and a member of the citizen Potawatomi Nation, and she sees the world through the lens of both science and her indigenous wisdom. She grasps the complexity of the true nature of the world, both physical and spiritual, and the importance of reciprocity and gratitude. One of her later chapters is called People of the Seventh Fire. Her nation are the Potawatomi, which means people of the fire. Keeping the fire is crucial. Where would we be without it? We light the chalice every Sunday in recognition that the flame guides us and warms our hearts and connects us. As part of passing along ancient wisdom, Kimmerer's father taught her and her siblings, and then later her children and all his other grandchildren and other children, he taught them how to build a fire in the right way. He said that when it's in balance, when all the parts are working together and united in purpose, it's easy. But without balance, you fail again and again. Wall Kimmerer writes, so much depends on the lighting of this fire, so neatly laid on the cold ground and circled round by stones, a platform of dried maple kindling, a floor of fine twiglets snapped from the underside of a fir, a nest of shredded bark ready for the coal over which broken pine branches are balanced, to draw the flame upward. Plenty of fuel, plenty of oxygen, all the elements are in place. But without the spark, it is only a pile of dead sticks. So much depends on the spark. So much depends on the spark. We who live in wealthy nations are accustomed to flipping a switch without ever thinking about it or about where the spark comes from. We turn on the stovetop to cook. We flip on the computer to entertain ourselves or work. We flip a light switch when the house is dark. The furnace switches itself on when the house is too cold. Most of the time, we don't even think about the sparks that literally make our lives possible. We don't bring the sources of our comfort into consciousness, just as we don't bring darkness into consciousness. The psychologist Carl Jung said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." Meditation is one way of bringing darkness to consciousness and understanding its gifts. We sit in stillness, maybe with our eyes closed. We offer our minds a rest from the busyness of everyday life. We let our thoughts go. Sometimes on the good days, we find stillness of the mind and heart, stillness in our body. When we breathe in, we are aware that we are breathing in. When we breathe out, we are aware that we are breathing out. We notice the moment of pause, of rest, of stillness at the point between the in-breath and the out-breath. The winter solstice is like that pause, the balancing point between the waning and growing of the light, that place where we are fully alive, present to the beauty of both light and dark. Meditation encourages us to observe our random thoughts that flutter across our minds, and then to let them go. We practice, it's called a practice for a reason. We practice so that bit by bit, we open our capacity for compassion, love, kindness toward ourselves and others. Meditation is one path toward enlightenment that values the dark and stillness. But the purpose of meditation, of making the darkness conscious, is not to remain forever in that peacefulness and isolation of the dark, but to come alive with greater love, with more compassion, with deeper awareness. We aspire to kindle the sparks of love and kindness and creativity and ultimately joy. Creative fire is more than just the literal sparks of energy that keep us alive. There is the fire of creativity that feeds our souls and nourishes our hearts. Some lucky creative souls flourish in the darkness and create sparks out of their own minds and hearts. They bring us beautiful music and words and paintings and images. And some of us, if we're lucky, find creative passion in the work that we do in and for the world. The philosopher and educator Howard Thurman said, "Don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive and go do it, because what the world needs is people who have come alive." Finding our own creative fire enlivens and enriches us, but we need fuel, and we don't find that alone. We are interdependent with one another and with the entire web of existence. Even creative artists who appear to work in isolation are connected with the culture they live in. Sparks are ignited between all of us through generations, from parents and grandparents, friends and companions. In the reading, Teresa Soto reminded us, the spark is what passes between us, along with our aliveness, our possibility. The spark is a seed of fire that must be treasured and tended, that it may bring the light. In our Uucc tradition, we can sometimes be fierce individualists. I know I used to be. But when I first studied Uucc history as an adult, I was astonished to learn that I hadn't created my own philosophy out of whole cloth. What I thought was unique to me had come from the teachings of our Uucc ancestors, that people are born good, that we all have worth and value, that we accept one another's paths toward the holy, even if they're different from ours. The reality is that our creative fire relies on fuel from those who have gone before and from those who walk alongside of us. We prepare the kindling and tinder and create a new flame from their sparks. We discover for ourselves the values of our spiritual ancestors: freedom, tolerance, open hearts and minds. We know that they sometimes fell short of their ideals, as we do ourselves. Yet we still have much to learn from our ancestors and from one another and from the world. We can't kindle our flames in isolation. What sparks are we kindling for others that we may not even be aware of?
In a time full of war, be peace. In a time full of doubt, just believe. Yeah, there ain't that much difference between you and me. In a time full of war, be peace. In a time full of hate, be alive. When you do somebody wrong, make it right. Don't hide in the dark. You were born to shine. In a world full of hate, be a light. Descends, look for stars. When you need hands to hold, look for ours. Build fires from scratch, and the sparks will be past. When the darkness descends, look for stars. In a world that's turned dark, be a light. When things go all when you just see black and white. In a world that turns dark, be a light. In a world that needs you, be a light.
We are not alone. In this gathering, in the sharing of our creative fire, the spark passes from heart to heart, person to person, generation to generation. It feeds our souls, warms our hearts, gives us hope, and enlivens us for the work ahead. We kindle our flames as Teresa Soto said, on the hearth around which we gather to be nourished, energized, and warmed, and where we get ready to disperse, enlivened. May we treasure the dark for the gifts it offers. May we carry our own light into the world, knowing that we are held and supported by the love which will not let us go. Amen. I invite you to sing in the spirit of Advent, O come, Emmanuel, or not sing, hum, dance, sing with Bill. It's number 225 in your hymnal, O come, Emmanuel.
listening to Reverend Libby's words, this extinguishing the chalice seems particularly special. So I hope you'll say the words with me if you know them. I'm looking forward to when we can all hold hands and do this again. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.